Morning. Good morning. Good
afternoon. Good morning. How are you? God, it is afternoon. It's slightly later than normal. 12:30, not 12 o'clock. Nick Cook's up nice and early, 7:30 in the morning over there in New York.
I won't lie to you. It is very early. I've never done anything live this early, but I'm happy to be here.
Good. And you've got a new desk from when we last spoke to you. You've really upgraded.
I've got a new desk. I've got a new microphone. I'm a new man. My productivity has probably increased about threefold this week, not being on a shared desk.
Is it that much of an impact?
Oh yeah, for sure. I definitely recommend investing in a good home working setup to anyone out there.
How close are you now to the other person working in the flat?
Previously, we were on a tiny kitchen table together, which even for a kitchen table was pretty disgracefully small. And now we're at other ends of our living room. So probably around 2 meters in proper self-isolation fashion. And the issue really now is calls. We've had calls all day long. I'm sure there's lots of people who sympathise with this, but there doesn't seem to be a solution apart from maybe putting a desk in the bedroom, which, again, for sort of work-life balance, I'm not too keen to sit in the bedroom working all day and then try and sleep in there.
So, right, you're trying to mix it up.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem sensible for the old mental health or sleep pattern, to be honest.
I've been very fortunate, as you can see from my camera, in order to create my balcony as my own office, which over the last couple of days, when it's been a fantastic weather for London, we've really made the most of it. So I've kind of converted this. Aaron Shepard's very lucky to have his own study, which is probably the most, valuable asset in houses currently right now around the world. Mainly to keep the kids and the dogs away, right?
Yeah, I think certainly. I'm pleased for the door, is what I would say.
Right. First question, please. If you're watching, please send in questions throughout the live stream. It's what's going to keep us going. I'm going to be here until 2 o'clock, so about half an hour. First question from Thomas.
1:30, not 2 o'clock.
1:30. Sorry, 1:30. I said 2 o'clock because I know you've got a call. 1:30. So we've got an hour. Thomas Godfrey. First question. Aaron Shepard. Despite an increase in social media usage, is Goat seeing a surge in new clients or existing clients increasing their social budgets? Good question.
Yeah, good question. The easier to deal with your existing clients right now because doing something is maybe nerve-wracking enough for people, but having to go and on board and find the right suppliers is obviously another level. We are still winning work, fortunately, and we are winning new clients probably at 50-60% the rate of new clients that we were winning 6 weeks ago from a volume point of view. But our existing clients spends are going up to sort of counter that. So we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's the big thing. We're still winning work. Clients are still looking for partners. We think in this current situation, we're very well suited for that. And so, we're probably better suited than lots of other agencies, but we're not the only people suited to this. I think there's been a change in the last couple of weeks where boredom has just taken over. And so, boredom over fear, I think is the big thing now, which means brands are looking to get active. And I think we're going to see that keep going. So hopefully we've seen the bottom of this. We should have we should have an okay month this month, not as good as obviously we would have predicted 3 months ago, but I'm hoping that this is as bad as it gets, and we should start to see uplift for everybody over the next few weeks.
I think
we've obviously, go on.
Yeah, I think the key thing there is that we had to act very quickly when we saw budgets being frozen and pushed back. I think a lot of the work that we've been bringing in from existing clients, if we just sat on our hands, it wouldn't have come in. So if that question sort of pointed asking what you potentially could do to make sure the revenue keeps coming in, I think we moved very quickly. We built a sort of COVID-19, how the industry is reacting deck, which we shared on LinkedIn, which you might have seen. That's well worth reading. There's lots of good insights in that. But really, we jumped and really did a deep dive on every single existing client. I think it's obvious that you're more likely to win work from existing clients right now than win new clients. So really focusing on that and focusing on, what are their overall business objectives now, because they will have changed massively in the last few weeks. And if you're not in constant communication with them, you'll be missing out to budgets being taken by other agencies, or even the brand might be slowing down their spend when really they shouldn't be in most sectors, especially if you're in the social space. If you're educating them properly, they should be looking at increasing spend with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the key thing that we've realised over the last couple of weeks is that lots of budget is getting cut from across the marketing channels, but social and digital is increasing as a percentage of that spend, and it's about opportunity as well as events and in real life marketing activities aren't as available as they were 6 months ago. This is an opportunity that has to be taken care of, and obviously we get to know those opportunities much faster if we're working with that client already than if we're not. Aaron Shepherd, you were going to say something?
I can't remember, so carry on.
No worries. Right, continuing on. Toby Moore, question on LinkedIn. In and out, just doing a shot. What skills would you want from a prospective employee in their first marketing job? Using isolation time to develop my skill set for accreditation and digital training, but what would you guys recommend?
Okay, good point. I definitely think people should be upskilling themselves right now. Key things that we're looking for, it'll obviously change based on roles, but to try and be as general as possible. I think really understanding social and being native, understanding, and by native, I don't just mean you have an Instagram channel and or you sit on Instagram and follow people. I mean somebody that, for example, has a YouTube channel and has been uploading, editing, producing, like that skill set. Somebody having a YouTube channel that might have 2,000 or 3,000 subs. I would value their skills in digital marketing over somebody that's been working at a PPC company for 6 months, for example. So I think really doing it personally and understanding how platforms work, how to move traffic, how to thumbnail, how to copyright, like that's the skill sets that more and more brands are going to require. I think young people are very well suited for that because they have grown up with these platforms over the last 10 or 15 years. But I also know many 40, 50-year-olds who have learned this over the last few years and have reskilled so that they understand it. So, my advice to everybody right now, regardless of what business you're in, is get digital and try and start understanding, how you can improve your own skill set regarding this.
Yeah, I think that in general, this might sound bad as a business owner, but I think being willing, understanding the current environment and being willing to do some work experience or prove yourself for a month or two.
I think for me, it's about the... Go on, Nick.
Is really important. Even when I think back to my experience, I started a blog linking to Aaron's point about 9 years ago, an Arsenal blog, which was utter shit. But I did it because blogging was far more relevant then in the way that maybe starting a YouTube channel would be now. I knew I wanted to work in the sports media space. And I just did it so that I had something a bit different to present. And that led to me getting the intro at Sport Lobster, and then I did some unpaid work experience at the beginning there. And I think now more than ever, it's unlikely you're going to get your dream job out of uni, even if you're, on minimum wage, because there are people with 3, 4, 5 years experience right now who are having to take pay cuts and do things they didn't want to do for less money with more experience. So I think you have to sacrifice your pride a little bit and accept the reality and do whatever you can to prove yourself to get a foot in the door, would be my advice.
Yeah, I mean, social is a level playing field, right? So there's nothing stopping anybody from creating content, right? If you have a phone, it's a level playing field. So I think an easy way for people to try and differentiate themselves is through that.
Yeah.
Harry, I can't hear you. You're on a weird delay.
Yeah, I think the easiest skill that you could learn with time on your hands that is very valuable is sort of photo editing. Oh, really?
You seem to
try and move.
15 seconds delay.
So I'm going to give you... Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm sure if it's live, but we can hear you.
I'm going to try and move.
Okay, well let's crack on anyway. Let me find another question on LinkedIn while we're waiting for Harry. We're still here, guys. Sorry, we're just waiting for Harry to get back. Question from Joe on YouTube. Have you ever worked with influencers on a pay based on performance basis? We have, but we don't want to. Basically, that's affiliate marketing. Once you set the results for influencers based purely on performance, you lose complete control of what they're going to do to get it. So you start to see clickbait, you start to see influencers lying about offers and things like that, because all they care about is getting the audience to acquire. We're trying to get the right audience to acquire in the right way. We don't just want, we've got no interest in bots. We've got no interest in people paying their mates to do it and stuff like that. That's where affiliate marketing tends to get you. So for us, there is usually performance-based elements in it, but we don't want to pay people on an affiliate model. We don't want to pay people purely based on acquisition numbers.
Can you hear me again?
Yeah, we can hear you. That's good.
Lovely, I'm back.
If you're an influencer, rather than agency or brand, you're considering working on that model, I'd say I'd think very carefully about it. I think there are certain verticals which the affiliate model is more effective in, more familiar in, like sports betting, for example. The issue if you get stuck in that cycle is that you start really spamming your audience and the content just gets worse and worse, and your audience starts switching off to other brands in that space or products in that space. And if you are capable of driving amazing affiliate sales, then you've got an unbelievably valuable audience anyway. So you're better off just doing brand deals where you're paid a fee, and your longevity will be much greater.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And also, going back onto the last question where I cut out, but like the skill that I'd try and upskill in right now, just because it takes a lot of time, but you've got time on your hands, but it's so valuable in all sorts of social spheres, and any sort of digital job is photo editing on Photoshop and things like that. Like, it's so underserved from people being able to do that and something else, and the value of being able to design a great graphic or edit a great photo and be able to use it as a social media manager or an ad manager or create thumbnails for YouTube, like whatever it is, like being able to do that and the digital marketing aspect of it is incredibly valuable and something that takes a while to learn, but you can do it whilst you're in lockdown. Anyway, right. This is a great question actually, from Victoria Horobin. Aaron Scheffer, going to you. What would your advice be to someone trying to move from social media manager to strategist? Also, would your advice be to someone trying to seek work during this lockdown?
Oof. Social media manager to strategist is really about trying to just. I think for me, it's broadening horizons. Yeah, I think to become a strategist, you have to have a wider understanding of channels and how things link into each other. So, to be a social media manager, you certainly have to understand what you're doing on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and across those channels. But to be a strategist, you need to understand how that connects in with your TV campaign, with your out-of-home campaign, with your direct response campaign, with your mail shots, with your store advertising. It's really understanding the different benefits of each channel and how they all work together, and then being able to try and think as big picture as possible. I'm constantly telling our strategists to think higher, right? That we'll be having a brilliantly detailed conversation around mechanics and things like that, and I'm trying to push them to think about it from 50,000 feet and try and understand how the whole thing really looks. Now I have to push myself to do that. All of us, I think, the best strategists can see things from high up, and they can then plan really well. I think a strategist and a media planner are very similar. So, what can you do practically is try and understand those other channels, understand why people are doing what they're doing on TV, what the benefits are, what the benefits of out of home are, how to buy, what the different messages are, the different content types, how things link, the different cuts, what you should do first, what the psychological element. There's a lot of human consciousness stuff in advertising. We're trying to understand why people think the way they do. So if you can get into psychology and start to understand that side of things, it will certainly help you from a strategist's point of view. And then just be aware, right? The best people I've ever met in this are rooted in the culture of wherever they are, right? I don't think you can be a brilliant global strategist, because what people do in LA and New York is very different to what people do in London and Berlin. So the best strategists, I think, are country-based, and they really, really understand the culture that they're living in. So those few things, I think, is the movement to strategist.
I think for me, the answer to the question you don't want, but is true, is that a bit of experience and time is probably the reason. And I think, the beauty, and I've always backed social media managers. I mean, that's is where I came from myself, but like, that is a fantastic role to learn everything. You're in the midst of all the different communications going out as a brand or as a company. You understand tone, you understand communication, you understand the ability to be short and sweet and get the message across. It's all comes together in a really nice package, and being able to use that and then look at everything else that other people are doing and being able to add your own little spin on it, I think is a really, really important skill. But you need to do it for a while in order to understand the wider mix, like Aaron says. But being able to do strategy requires a lot of empathy for other channels and other things and other problems that marketers have in these brands. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Nick, anything else to add?
I just think our experience at Sport Lobster was sort of a good example of that process of thrown in and given the opportunity to learn about pretty much every single channel. And the real value of that process was finding out what didn't work in certain circumstances. So that once we started Go and we were pitching either some of those channels and deciding which ones to go for, or pitching against other agencies, pitching different things, we had a very clear understanding of, and we were very strong on telling clients what we know added value and what we know didn't. So yeah, I think just getting that experience either from being in a role for a bit that gives you exposure to those, or just speaking to colleagues across the business in other teams and trying to understand how it works. And then the other thing is data. So being a social media manager, you'll be obviously leveraging data every day. I think being a strategist, the level of insight and your ability to either find data and use data to inform your strategy. And then the second thing is, how do you then use that data to inform the proposal and the pitch in terms of kind of winning that business once you've used it to come up with a strategy is really important.
Yeah, I mean, the best strategists make really complicated things simple, and the best salespeople do as well. That is the golden nugget. If you're struggling to sell something, make it more simple, make it easier for people to understand. And so, I think the best strategist on the planet can take something that's global and got 10,000 moving parts and really, really complicated, and they can tell you what it is in 3 sentences, and you go, oh wow, that sounds great. And that, taking something that's massive and really complicated and being able to talk about it in a way that inspires people, but in like 20 seconds, I think is critical.
Agreed. Brevity is very, very important, especially when you're selling these ideas. Okay. This is a question I wanted. I've prompted it in the scrolling bar below. But Aaron Sheffield, I imagine you've seen it. What are your thoughts about yesterday's Fortnite and Travis Scott collaboration from an influencer perspective? It was wicked.
Yeah, I love it. I was literally just watching it before here. I'm jealous that we didn't do it, to be honest, from an agency perspective. I'm not sure who did, but they're obviously, when it comes to having their finger on culture, they've obviously got it bang on. The numbers are staggering. The brand and sort of consumer loyalty that I think he will get from that will be staggering for himself. I think the benefits that Fortnite will get from it will be huge. What does it really cost? You know what I mean? What is it actually? It's not the hardest thing in the world to put on, right? So I think we're just going to see more and more of these, and maybe games become the new concert venues. maybe the O2 need to be worried about Fortnite as a competitor. Maybe that's the reality of where we're going. So I think it's hugely exciting, very, very innovative, really understanding the platforms and the products that people are using and fitting themselves into that beautifully.
Nick Cook, have you watched it? Have you seen what's going on? Obviously, we had Marshmello.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but I guess just for anyone who's not aware of what this is, Fortnite essentially have been, I guess, hosting concerts in game. I think they did one last year with a different artist, but
Marshmello,
did one yesterday and it got 12.3 million people watching it, which is just insane when you look at kind of real world numbers versus in-game digital numbers.
Yeah, I mean the exciting thing about those numbers as well, or the impressive thing, is that's just the concurrent in-game viewers. So that's people that are watching it whilst in-game. That doesn't include anybody watching it on Twitch, anybody watching it on YouTube, anybody that goes back and watches it, nothing. So an incredible cultural moment. I think my only fear with it, and kind of comes back to your point, Aaron, and kind of argues against it, is how many times does this work without it becoming just another one of those things? At the moment, we've had two really high-profile cases of this, with the Marshmello one, and then we had the Travis Scott one. But at what point does it dilute to the point where it's not as interesting and not many people turn up?
I would argue it's less interesting already because it's the second one, actually.
But it got more viewers.
I would take a different approach to that. I would say that I think they can build something out of this that becomes a regular event that people go to at a certain time every week to see what comes out. That's what I would do if I was there. I wouldn't announce the artists. I would do something like what they did with Travis or with Marshmello every Friday night at 10 p.m. and watch it go crazy every time when it's a new artist. That's what I mean by them long-term taking on the O2. If that carries on post-lockdown and these shows carry on Friday, Saturday nights, less people will go to shows. So
time to do it right. That's why they've done it now, because everyone's at home. They've seen that it's a massive opportunity. We've been talking about kind of repetitive cycle of content in terms of live content a lot over the last few weeks. Joe Wicks, the body coach, another good example with the PE sessions every single morning. People know now to put their kids in front of the TV at the same time every morning, which is why his audience is becoming so big and so loyal. So I think that's another tip in terms of live content. Try and create some kind of regular cycle. People know when to come back.
Exactly.
Nick Cook, question for you. In terms of productivity, how are you monitoring output across your teams? And have you noticed any drop in productivity as a result of new barriers to communication and working?
That's an interesting one. I think that's obviously a big challenge at the moment. We have been at home for about 4 weeks now. In terms of, I mean, the way we normally do it is we try and track how much of everyone's time they're spending on each campaign that they're working on. Partly because some clients we bill in terms of an hourly basis, and partly just so that we can work out how much time and therefore money and resource we're putting into each client. A key thing that we realized, it probably took us a while to realize it, is that not every campaign is worth the same thing, which might seem a really stupid, obvious thing to say, but we were running the business for the first year, and if we had a campaign that was 30 grand and a campaign that was 60 grand, we weren't really giving the 60 grand one twice as much time and resource and seeing it as twice as important. And then there's another thing which is really important, which is, maybe the 30 grand one is more important than the 60 grand one because it's a brand with much higher spending power. We know that in terms of the KPIs, we can absolutely smash it. We know that they've already mentioned they're going to invest more money if we do a good job. So that's kind of a completely separate point. But in terms of the actual team, the process we're going through is every team within the business is having a kind of morning meeting to check in, set priorities. The key thing for me in the US is making sure that the overall priorities are set very clearly each day and each week. And then we make sure that when we check in the next morning, I give everyone a chance, or at least the kind of senior leaders a chance to speak for themselves, speak for their team, and take everyone through their progress. I think just doing that in itself gives people a chance to kind of be accountable for their own work and also just put a little bit of pressure on them to make sure that when you have pushed them on something the morning before, they've actually done it by the next morning in front of everyone. But yeah, I don't think you need to be hugely kind of micromanaging every hour of every day. I think it's important to notice if there's a member of the team who's slightly less busy. We often, when we get on a call with our senior managers, the first thing we say is, what's the resource like? How busy are people? And there'll always be certain areas of the business that are more busy than others. And then it's our job to reapportion resource, or, we've normally got 4 or 5 things that we really, really want to be working on. So it's great to hear that, there might be a little time or someone that we can pass something to. But yeah, those are probably the kind of key processes that we're using at the moment.
What about in terms of productivity between offices, like US to UK, the collaboration? Has that been easier or has it been harder?
I think it's been, in many ways, harder, to be honest. I think because the collaboration, so we've kind of been a centralized global business out of the UK for a while. So as a US team, we would always have a morning call with the UK team. We would brief things into them. We'd receive them back. We're very collaborative. I think the big shift since everyone's been at home is that we've almost had to take the UK US way of kind of digitally working through video call and turn the whole business into that kind of video call based digital business. And actually, I think in terms of the ways that the UK and US working, I think we've already got that process nailed, which is nice. I think what has been challenging is that there's just taking that used to be 1 or 2 big calls a day with the UK. Now it feels like all day, every day is on calls, either with just the US business. But my role specifically has had to become far more of a kind of a global role, I guess. I'm speaking to you guys a lot more than I was. I think there's going to be a phase where, as a founder of a business, you have to kind of step back and think about the global business again for a few weeks, get all those new structures and processes nailed down, and then I imagine it'll kind of fall back into place and run smoothly. But yeah, I think it's certainly been a challenge to try and get that way of working up and running.
Aaron Shepherd, in terms of productivity, how have you found working with others? What was the question? How do we monitor the output?
Timesheets. That's the answer. Yeah, that's it. We monitor what everyone's doing on a timesheet point of view. We're not micromanaging, telling them what, but we understand what resource is going towards what, so that we understand margins and workloads and everything else. There's not a much more complicated answer than that, I don't think. It took us a while, as Nick was saying, to see the value of those timesheets, which I think we definitely do now. But now that they're in play, it obviously gives us a much more accurate understanding of what resource goes towards what, and what we make on it essentially, or not.
Okay, going to stay with you with a question from Jamie Sharp, friend of the agency. With social budgets being heightened during this period, do you think they'll go back down after the world returns to, quotes, normal, or stay high? I think this is for me, just before you answer, is about, social and agencies like us proving the worth of social right now in the best way possible. And there's no reason why they wouldn't stay high.
Yeah, I mean, certainly not if I've got anything to do with it. I'm going to do everything in my power to prevent brands from dropping that. Brands have been underspending on social and influencer for years, to be clear, by, I think, 1/5 or 1/10 of what they should be spending, and that's what they have been spending. So I think we're going to see spends go up by 5 to 10 times, at least, some brands more. I don't think they'll ever go back to what they were. That they might, if they go up from 1x to 10x now, maybe they'll go back down to 8x when this is over, but they won't ever go back down to 1. This is the channel that is going to take budget off all the other channels. TV is going to decline. Out of home is going to decline. Radio is going to, these things are going to decline, or at least they're not going to grow at the same percentage as people are thinking. Social and influence are definitely going to grow. So, I don't think overall ad budgets will go up. So based on that, and based on the fact that influencer and social has to go up, the others should all be reduced. So I think we're going to see a reorganization of the marketing mix right now, and then I think 80% of what is done now will be continued whenever we come out of this. So yeah, it's progress can't go backwards. It just can't. Once you've started, there was a lot of resistance when, people were making the first cars because people thought horses were better. But once you've got a certain number of cars out there, you never go back to horses because you built roads. So that's what's happening. People are building roads right now, so they'll never go back to the horse.
I suppose, Nick, it's all down to agencies like us and other social agencies who are trying to make an impact, need to act in a disruptive way, fast moving, and come up with great ideas that keeps brands believing in the ROI that this channel can produce, right?
Yeah, exactly. I can't actually remember what the first question was. Do you mind reminding me?
No worries. Social budgets are going to be heightened in this period. Do you think they'll go back down after the world returns to normal or stay high? I'm saying there's a responsibility on us as agencies in this space to keep them high.
Yeah, I think any brand that is shown the value of this by us or another agency won't go back, right? That's the reality. If they try this and they fail, they might. And they could fail by making wrong decisions or using the wrong people, whatever it may be. There isn't a guaranteed win. But if you use the right people in this channel, you shouldn't feel the need to go back because it will generate better value. That's the real reason. It's not because it feels nicer. It's because your CFO will go, well, we're not dropping that budget. It's the best performing channel we've got.
I think the interesting one is because the biggest shift in the industry is going to be TV to social, and really social video, either vertical video, Instagram stories, etc., or YouTube. And I think what we're seeing it's really interesting is that TV is up in terms of more viewership, potentially even more. Well, there will be a decline, but not a huge decline in terms of ad spend. The issue is going to be how to create great content for TV, but the audience is there right now. I think what's going to be really interesting is post COVID-19, if that's whatever that gradual process looks like, TV viewership is going to drop to the point where it'll be lower than it ever was previously. The audience is going to stay on YouTube, and they're going to stay on social, and out of home, experiential, etc., will start to come back. It isn't that effective and hasn't really ever been, and people are going to realize that more than ever now. But what's interesting is that shift from TV to social is going to happen in a really dramatic way post COVID-19 because the audience just won't be there where it is now because everyone's at home.
Agreed. Right. Question from Ollie Thorpe on YouTube. One for Aaron Shepherd, but I'll kick it off. Has lockdown made you can reconsider your need for physical offices? It's something that we've been talking about quite a lot in the last 48 hours.
We've renamed it, haven't we now?
Yeah, we're not calling them offices anymore. We're calling them venues. That's what our post-COVID-19 office space will be called. It'll be called a venue because we do not believe that the office of old is going to be something that comes back into society in the same way as it did. We're not going to see banks and banks and banks of desks where people are going to be forced to work there with a specific seat every single day. We just don't believe that that's going to be the new norm. Especially in the agency or the creative world. It just doesn't make much sense to us post this situation. So what we're going to do instead is going to build venues which are great to host people, events going to be great to host, meetings going to be great to host, just casual conversations, be creative, allow our teams to collaborate in there. Yes, we'll still have some desks, but we certainly won't have a desk for every single person for every single day because it doesn't really make sense for that to happen anymore. And I think that will create it will certainly create a different culture, but something that we've always been massively proud of is how we're creatively collaborative in our agency, and all the teams work together anyway, and there's very little segregation except from in sort of day-to-day role, but there is a lot of people that socialize and work together every day on campaigns and brands. And therefore, we just want to build something that's a bit more, favorable for that collaboration. So, Aaron Shepherd, anything else to add?
I can't say much better than that. I agree with that. I think you've said it. What I would say is that I personally have been absolutely anti work from home, virtual. To be clear, before COVID, we didn't have a work from home policy. You were not allowed to work from home at Goat. You had to come to the office every day. And, I think you guys have maybe been slightly less strong on that than me, but still felt like we all need to be in an office. For me, it's been really black and white. We just need to be in an office. And I definitely realize now that I was wrong. That's what I thought we needed because of something. Actually, you don't. And I still believe in the value of having people together and face to face. But I think what you've just described as a venue and as somewhere, as a melting pot for people, is actually much more suitable to this day and age. I live an hour and 15 minutes away from the office. So it's 2.5 hours a day for me to commute. It's time that I've got back and I don't really want to give up every single day. So I agree with you. I could see a scenario where people are in the office for 2 or 3 days a week when they need to be. And that's sort of the working scenario that we'll go into for lots of people.
This is an interesting comment. The rise of WeWork, says Ollie Thorpe, as a follow-up to that. Do we believe that this is a good thing for WeWork? I suppose in some ways for smaller businesses, it probably is that kind of, 5 to 20 person. But once you get past 20, I still don't believe it's a great solution. I think being able to build your own space that works for the sort of meetings and collaborations and events that you want to put on is way better than a WeWork.
I think
certainly more cost effective.
I think the key thing is people want flexibility and the ability to move quickly and adapt. I think people want their own space and they want to be able to invite clients or external people to their own space and kind of brand it up. But people don't want a 2, 3 year, 4 year lease. I think that whole model is going to have to shift. We actually, when we started the US office and Harry and I were running around New York hunting, there was another business which was a sort of basically you could get bigger spaces than typical WeWork offices and like your own space. And so they would kind of brand them up and make them feel like they were your own space, but you paid a slightly higher premium for a much shorter term lease. So you could get kind of a 6-month lease at a time. I think that sort of model actually is much better positioned. I think people are willing to pay a bit more if they have that flexibility. And they'll probably need a smaller space anyway, because part of their workforce will be working from home, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be a really interesting shift. I think I would not want to be a commercial property agent or a commercial property owner in this point. I think you're absolutely right. I think lease terms are going to be incredibly reduced. I think the type of offices and the requirement to split the big offices up that they currently own into smaller offices is going to be a requirement as businesses look to scale down their physical operation. It certainly wouldn't be something I want to be a part of. I think it's going to be very, very costly. And I think it's going to take a lot of time for them to regain any sort of normality in that industry. Okay, Aaron Shepherd, this is a great question from Mills. Should we furlough our team and have little to no output now, or keep them and try and plan and strategize and come out of this the other side stronger? Would love to know your thoughts on this. You start the answer and I'll ask in the comments. And if you can...
Yeah, if you can get more detail on
how many people have you got, Mills? What is the business?
Yeah.
And yeah, actually, those are the two things. Like, have you got any people? Have you got a physical office that you're paying rent for? And what business have you got? What's the industry?
Yeah, if you can answer that, Mills, then I'll come back to you.
7 people.
Okay. Type of business.
Yeah, the type of business in the industry is going to be key here. Because we've seen, there's so many great businesses and industries that can pivot in this time. But there are obviously some industries that do need to wait it out and kind of, damage limitation for the short term and, take the time to strategize, but maybe you don't need 7 people in order to do that. Physical office, we work in a WeWork style office, recruitment, marketing business. There you go.
Okay. I am not a believer in, I think if you've got a recruitment marketing business, you should, if you can, try and pivot and keep going. What I don't think you should do is wait for a scenario that you have in your head at some point down the line. I hear a lot of people saying to me, well, if we're, as long as we come out in 4 weeks or as long as we come out in 8 weeks, and I think that there's no certainty of that. So you're putting yourself at huge risk. So the first thing I would assume is that this lasts forever, which it obviously won't, but Imagine it lasts for a year. Are you going to furlough people for a year? I'm not sure you'll ever come out of that. So if you're only 7 people, I would try and pivot as quickly as possible. There are people hiring. People are hiring. We've got clients that are doing very, very well right now, that are seeing e-com sales up significantly and are putting more budget into it. So what I would do if I was you is try and understand which marketing agencies are hiring and go and do everything you can to pivot to be the perfect recruitment partner for them.
It sounds like, just to cut in, just so I think I understand it. Is there a recruitment marketing business? So they're helping employers create a better employer brand in order to recruit a younger age group. That's kind of what I believe they do. So instead of being like a traditional recruiter, they're actually making a greater employer brand, which I do believe is probably a better time than ever before to do that.
Yeah, so we're talking to several of our brands right now about starting essentially versions of the vlog like we're doing. I think it's the best employee advocate tool that you can do. We went from having 25 job applications a week to 500 a week. We're talking to some of the biggest brands in the world about starting their own vlog. So it sounds like approaching businesses who need that and then pivoting into creating those vlogs for people with the same end goal of getting that audience to go and apply for jobs there. The people that are going to win now are the people that pivot quickest and cleverly, right? It's not just pick another business and run into that. It's understand what problems have been created now, and any that you can solve, run at them right now to solve them. People are still spending, things are still going on. There's a lot of negativity, but I see positivity. What you don't see is people that are doing really well right now talking about it. So that's a little bit hidden. I see a lot of people talking about, oh, we furloughed people. This is bad. This is bad. It's quite therapeutic, I think, to open up. But the people that are actually doing well and making some money don't want to go out and publicly say it. But as a business looking for other businesses doing well, they do exist. You're just going to have to look deep and try and understand where they are and then pivot accordingly.
I think the other thing is there's such a big demand. It sounds like your business has a lot of expertise in the sort of B2B marketing space. And actually, in terms of the briefs we've got recently and in the last kind of 2 months, there's a huge demand for any kind of B2B marketers. They're quite few and far between anyway. If you already work with brands or individuals to try and make them more attractive to potential employees, I think you probably have a lot of those skills, and you can look at diversifying away from just that sector and try and, as Aaron says, look at the verticals, actually spending money, recruiting, and try and expand your repertoire a little bit.
Cool. So Harry, we've got 15 minutes left. I think it's quite a lot of questions. So let's do some sort of quick fire answers and just try and get through some of these.
Have we? I've not got a lot. I haven't got a lot of questions in my arsenal.
Okay, go to YouTube. If you go to the YouTube one, pull Andrew Harkness's up.
Where are we? Oh yeah, okay, right. We'll get that one up. Go on. Go away. Outside of big social channels, where do you see the biggest future potential for influence to influence? I'm going to ban you from saying TikTok, although that's the obvious answer.
No, I'm not going to say TikTok. I think TikTok's great, but I don't know if it'll have the let's just see. Let's see what happens with that. One I do think is massively undervalued is LinkedIn. I think the power of B2B is all on LinkedIn. So if you've got 25, 30,000 followers there, I would say that's as powerful as having a couple of 100,000 on another platform, as powerful as having 1 million on TikTok. If you're trying to sell services, the number of B2B approaches we get, where LinkedIn's the only answer. So for me, LinkedIn is still massively, massively undervalued. If you want to get to a premium audience, it's going to be there as well. All the B2B stuff's going to be there. So, if you're in procurement, that's where you should be. There are loads of reasons to grow there. I think it's still a platform that's developing. But with lives coming in and other things, there are advantages to it. We'd certainly like more analytics and things like that. But I'm very bullish about LinkedIn. I think it's absolutely here to stay. and I think it's going to keep growing and growing and growing as a content platform.
Nick Cook, you agree with that?
Yeah, I've definitely been personally surprised by the power of LinkedIn. I think the other thing on LinkedIn is that you don't, if you're thinking about starting to create content, and you like, even now, if we've got 30, 40 people on a live stream concurrently, it might seem like it's not much and it's not worth it. But I can say, in terms of the business impact that we've seen in terms of actual briefs received and work won, and just kind of trying to create some thought leadership in the market, I think it's massively impactful on a B2B level. And yeah, as Aaron says, I think that the B2B influencers, that we've already run some campaigns on LinkedIn, and there are influencers on LinkedIn with 20 to 40,000 followers, and I think the number of individuals with that kind of audience who are going to be creating branded content is going to increase massively. What's going to be also interesting is, how do you promote brands as a B2B influencer on LinkedIn and try and make it seem authentic? I think that's almost more challenging than a normal consumer-facing influencer, and that's something that's going to be kind of the next couple of years. I think we're going to start playing around in.
Just to add another platform to the mix, which hasn't got a lot of press over the last couple of weeks, where I thought it might have, but launched about 8 weeks ago, and that's Byte. Why? It has got a decent amount of traction. We can see it's got about 2 to 4 million downloads worldwide in the first 8 weeks. It's obviously Vine 2.0, founded by the same people. But what I think will take it to the next level, which is happening in the next 7 days, is that they're launching on the 1st of May their partner program, which is basically going to separate it from TikTok from a creator point of view, because they're allowing the top 100 creators on Byte to share a $250,000 prize pool, effectively, which will be proportionally split depending on how many views they rake in. So I do think that, do I think has a huge audience right now? No. But it does have a huge potential to, one, create amazing content creators, very similar to TikTok, in the way that it's going to create people making short videos funny, very similar to how Vine did a few years ago, but also because it's actually rewarding the creators in the right way. And long term, its partner program, if they can pull it off, will be very, very positive for creators. And therefore, if they can build an audience on that platform, they might be financially benefited versus a TikTok.
I'd say is a sort of direct messaging apps. I think like WhatsApp being the primary one, although WhatsApp is not massively used in the US versus the rest of the world. But if you look at China, WeChat is a platform that started off reasonably similar to WhatsApp and now has expanded into lots of other kind of features. But a huge amount of the Chinese market influencer activity happens on WeChat. And I just think that even the way that we as a business use WhatsApp, the sort of instant gratification and the way that WhatsApp complements so many other social platforms at the moment, everything funny that people see on Instagram, even at the moment, parents, I've spoken to so many friends and their parents who are 50 plus and didn't know what a meme was, or a GIF was until 3 weeks ago, and now sharing them nonstop in family WhatsApp groups. So it's already very sort of, it's a part of that social ecosystem. And I think we'll see brands leveraging either WhatsApp or maybe there'll be another one that emerges, but I can see something in that space really emerging.
Staying with you, Nick Cook, what do you make of the situation where football is played behind closed doors? Football is nothing without fans, says Jack here.
I'll take any football right now. I don't need any fans in the stadium. I think a lot of my friends are talking about, especially Liverpool fans, weirdly, are talking about the fact they think, behind closed doors, football will be back up again in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and they'll finish the league and win the league. I can't see a way that football in the UK will resume and they'll manage to finish this season. I think nothing will happen till at the very earliest August, and I think they'll just start the new season. But I can't see a stage.
What makes you think that? I mean, literally yesterday, UEFA announced that was basically not going to happen.
They announced that the league wasn't going to end, right?
Yeah, the league wouldn't be cancelled at all.
Well,
So
all the lower leagues they've finished already, right? So that would make me think that they're going to do it for the rest of it.
Why? There's no financial implication for the lower leagues. That's the reason, right? That's the reason they can cancel those but can't cancel the others. There's no financial implication.
The infrastructure required to have Premier League games being played, even without fans, the level of infrastructure to broadcast those matches, like there's thousands of people required just to be in the stadium at one time to make it happen. And the fact they have to play so many games over a short period of time, I like Aaron, I am as sort of, I think you have to plan for the worst. And I think that, tournaments being moved back to 2021, even from kind of a month ago, I could see it maybe in other countries where they have dealt with this whole situation in a much more effective way, like Germany, for example, because they've had testing across the board from way earlier on, and they're set up to deal with it in a much more efficient way. But I just cannot see a way that we'd have any Premier League football for the next few months.
Yeah, I definitely disagree. I think there'll be a long run-off time, but I don't believe the season will be cancelled. I think they'll do everything they possibly can in order to make this season happen. No, I just don't. Like, everything that's come out, I was very fearful that was going to be the case maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. But with everything that's come out, the fact they moved Euro 2020 to Euro 2021, or should I call it Euro 2020, as they've somehow decided that Euro 2020, despite being played in 2021, should still be called Euro 2020. I imagine it was done to they didn't want to redo all the contracts, the trademarks, and the printing that they'd done 3 months in advance.
You imagine somebody, if they were very smart at the beginning of January, would have gone and bought all of the names. Like if you'd have bought Tokyo 2021, they would have bought that off you for millions.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
You could have guessed, right? You could have guessed in early Jan. Shit, are they going to delay this?
Yeah, I agree. But in terms of the football, like, I genuinely believe they're going to find a solution. It's worth too much money to the economy and worth too much money to the clubs for them not to find a solution.
I agree. But the what's worth money to them is it being on TV. To be clear, Premier League clubs don't give a shit whether fans come to the stadium.
No, I agree.
No difference from a financial point of view. So they don't care. They're all that matters is they can get it back on TV. If they don't get it back on TV, the Premier League has to pay back the TV companies hundreds of millions of quid, right? Which is going to do real damage. So, we've spoken to people in the football industry. I tell you, there's definitely not going to be fans at the stadium. 100%. This is all about, can you get it on TV and can they get the money from TV? That's it. So if you're hoping for football, the absolute best you're going to get is empty stadiums.
I think you're going to get every single match played every single night. I think you're going to get a very, very packed schedule. I think it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks before it's announced, before it actually plays. And I think the infrastructure is going to be very impressive, and it's going to show how new sport production is going to work. I mean, I was up until 5 a.m. last night watching the NFL draft, and it was seamless, and it was all done. They sent every single team and player in the draft a camera. They all had their own setup. So basically, all the general managers of all the teams had built like this studio in their house where their desk was, and then they had an interview zone with all their sponsors. Like it was fucking great, and they had so many different cameras. One that was provided by the league, one that was provided for the team with their Zoom call. Like so much going on. So if you're worried about what the Premier League production might be like if it has to be done virtually, then honestly go and watch 10 minutes of the draft last night, and you'll see how unbelievably seamless it was, with every single person being remote, and it was brilliant. It was great TV.
I think the production would be great. I think I would take football matches with just one crappy camera in the gantry and one angle at the moment. I think the viewership would be the same as what it was, or probably.
Oh, mate, I'd take teletext commentary at this point.
Yeah.
Just give me something to follow.
The other thing is the gambling industry, the sports betting industry, and all the other businesses that are only exist if football exists, basically, are going to see massive numbers. As soon as betting becomes available again, I'm talking UK market really, the numbers are going to be insane, and so clubs can make that revenue up through whatever other means they need to.
Yeah, I mean, I found myself betting on the draft last night with stakes that I'd never bet on anything else, just because I'm thinking about it. Well, yeah, but I haven't bet for 4 or 5 weeks, so I just roll that all into one. And
my poker numbers are up massively because people just want to throw their money away for whatever reason.
Exactly. Right.
Gamble responsibly, everyone.
Yeah, gamble responsibly. Right. I think we're going to leave it there because we've got a company meeting in 3 minutes' time, which we need to get to. Thank you very much for watching. We're going to try and do this every single week, Fridays at 7:30 Nick Cook time or 12:30 normal UK time. But Nick Cook is up early. We very much appreciate him coming on. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. We're 12:30 to 1:30 every Friday. We're obviously the vlog Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday, plus lots of other content across all of our social channels. Please do connect with us on LinkedIn or subscribe to us on YouTube. And yeah, we will be back next week. But yeah, we also have some vlogs going out over the weekend. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you Sunday. Thank you.